Obvious trigger warning this video for those with arachnophobia. Tarantulas. Theraphosidae. Spiders on steroids. Terrifying, but also kind of cute and fluffy. And take a closer look at those tiny, tiny spider paws. See, they're not that scary. Tarantulas are a common pet, but today we'll be looking at them from a wild perspective and how they primarily work. Tarantula classification is weird and complex. I'm about to hit you with some complex terms, but hopefully I've simplified them enough. They are arachnids, meaning that they have 8 joint legs and no antennae, and they are part of the family Theraphosidae. Some people have stated controversially that tarantulas are not true spiders, which has misled people into thinking that they are much more separated from spiders than they actually are. Most mainstream spiders that we see on a daily basis, like house spiders, garden spiders, etc., are part of a slightly separate group called Araneomorphae. These make up 90% of spider species. Tarantulas are in a slightly separate group called, bear with me on this one, Megalomorphae? I think, alongside funnel web and trapdoor spiders. So what I'm getting at is, if tarantulas aren't true spiders, then neither are funnel webs and trapdoors, right? You know, those very famous spiders. It's complex and divisive, but the general consensus is that yes, tarantulas are indeed spiders, just quite unique ones, of which there are over 900 species. Apologies to all arachnophobes out there, you're never escaping them. Obviously, I won't be talking about all 900 individual species. We're looking at the tarantula as a whole. I have selected a couple of very famous ones to talk about though. Tarantulas are nocturnal creatures and live in mostly warm climates, predominantly in Asia, South America and Africa. However, there are several species that thrive in colder, more absurd regions like the Andes mountain range. Many live underground, but some also live in trees and under logs. Unlike spiders, they don't use their web to catch prey, but rather to make a home for themselves. Tarantulas are ambush hunters who grab their prey with their legs and then bite, injecting venom into it. Tarantula venom is barely dangerous to humans and is comparable to that of a bee sting. They are also very docile and would rather avoid humans than bite one. They instead prefer to eat insects and small rodents, but certain species have been observed eating larger prey like snakes and even possums. Don't think about that too much. Obviously, spiders don't have teeth, so to digest their food, they secrete enzymes that liquidate the prey's body so they can just kind of slurp it up like soup, I suppose. Similar to snakes and lizards, tarantulas also molt their skin. This helps them while growing and also helps heal the body by renewing organs and shedding parasites. Tarantulas can also regenerate their limbs, and shedding their exoskeleton helps them grow back. On the subject of parasites, the tarantula hawk, aka the Pepsis wasp, is a species of wasp that lays its eggs on a tarantula's body. When these eggs hatch, they will immediately consume the spider. Very grotesque. Pepsis wasps are one of the few predators for tarantulas alongside certain birds and lizards. While tarantulas are famous for their docile nature, especially with it being such an antithesis to their looks and reputation, they do have defences in place to protect themselves. Besides the obvious venomous bite, some species, particularly in South America, have hair on their back called urticating hairs. These are thick, barbed hairs that they shed and flick off their abdomen and onto their prey when they feel threatened. The barbs cause irritation and pain and can even blind smaller species. I guess that means Seducer isn't the only one to weaponize hair then. In 2023, a new species of tarantula was found in a forest in southern Thailand. The tarantula in question was commonly called the electric blue tarantula within the pet trade, or rather is. But scientists have never considered it to be its own species or look into its natural habitat until now. This was a notable discovery because the species in question was an iridescent blue colour. Only around 4% of tarantulas have the colour blue on them, and it's considered to be a rare colour in nature in general, if we're going off of numbers. It's believed these tarantulas evolved to be blue for mating purposes and possibly as a warning sign against predators. these would have evolved over time from ancestral species. The iridescent blue, which is found in the 2023 species, is especially unique and is caused by the structures within the cells of their exoskeleton. These reflect colour back out, which creates a blue/violet, almost holographic effect. Mating for tarantulas is a very bizarre and somewhat risky business. Tarantulas are undoubtedly solitary and thrive on their own, but they need to reproduce. For this to happen, the male must insert his sperm into the female's abdomen. However, he has to do this without the female attacking him. Female tarantulas are much bulkier than males, and while the male may successfully and sneakily transfer his sperm, if the female decides she's hungry or even simply not interested, then she will kill the male with her fangs. Most of the time, the male will have done his job, but he'll also likely die anywhere. I mean, it's kind of girl boss, I suppose. The female will then lay anywhere between 75 to 1,000 eggs. Due to males being significantly more active and their mating circumstances, they have much shorter life expectancy of only about 7 years, whereas females can live up to 25. Now let's have a closer look at two very talked about species. First off, the famously intimidating Goliath bird eater, aka the biggest spider in the world, at least by weight. The giant huntsman is tied with it on leg span, which is about 30 centimetres. Although its namesake implies otherwise, it mostly feeds on mice and lizards. It's only rarely been spotted consuming often very small birds. It's found within the rainforests of Brazil and likes to burrow. Like their fellow tarantulas, they kill by biting with their fangs and injecting venom. Once again, this is not at all dangerous to humans and is more like a wasp sting. Very interesting fact, locals who live within the spider's range often eat it, and apparently it tastes very much like shrimp. Obviously don't just grab one and scran it if you happen to be in the area, but if anyone has ever tried this, please let me know. Our second famed tarantula may be the face of all tarantulas, and that's the Mexican redknee. They are one of the most popular pet tarantulas and one of the most illegally trafficked. Just a side note here, they are legal as pets, at least in the USA, if they're captively bred. In the 1980s, they were at very high risk due to the extent of the trafficking and are currently considered vulnerable by the IUCN Red List. But we'll talk more about all that a little bit later. They are found in Mexico, in shrubland, and have a leg span of about 15 centimetres. They are notable for being extremely docile, and that is one of the reasons why they became little movie stars. They were commonly used in films in the 1980s, like Indiana Jones and Star Trek and all those big adventure blockbusters. Often portrayed in these films as dangerous and scary little monsters, it fueled the world's fear of this mostly chill species, and in turn damaged their reputation. And the Mexican redknee's image became synonymous with the tarantula family as a whole. They deserve so much better. Look at those little paws. How can you fear that? Now moving on to the big sad. Tarantulas are prime victims of the illegal wildlife trade. Thousands are trafficked annually alongside other arthropods. This is usually for private collections across the world, and it's important to note that only certain species can be legally kept as pets in certain countries. It varies. There's all kinds of laws and regulations in regards to this that are actively ignored by certain people, i.e. wildlife traffickers. Trafficked tarantulas are usually either snatched straight from the wild or, more commonly, illegally bred. This illegal breeding means that even if tarantulas are rescued, they can't be returned to the wild since they have no experience living that way. They're so sought after that species are found being trafficked almost immediately after being discovered in the wild. Rarely any of them are safe. They're usually transported illegally in tiny Tupperware boxes and shoe boxes, both adults and babies. There was once even a report of a tarantula being found in a Nintendo cartridge, allegedly, and I need a visual for that because how? Was it a DS cartridge or I don't know, why, how, huh? Luckily, there are people out there working to rescue these little fellas, but their plight is often forgotten in favour of larger animals when it comes to the illegal wildlife trade. A lot of tarantulas that are rescued from these situations end up being rehomed in zoos and sanctuaries. Some also get returned to their home country and even can be reintroduced back into the wild, but this is quite rare. Sadly, a lot of tarantulas also end up getting euthanized. There's just so many that there's nowhere for them to go. Even sanctuaries and zoos can only take on a certain amount at a time. I don't want to end on a completely depressing note, but these things are important. IUCN has only assessed the status of 15 of 900 species of tarantula, and 12 of them are in threatened categories. Tarantulas on the whole are tough little guys and no doubt will be around for a long while, but individual ones are threatened to near extinction in the wild. Not only do we help them where we can, but they also help us. The venom of some species is being studied as it's believed it may help treat blood clots and epilepsy. This is why preservation of species, no matter how small and or scary, is vital. They may be the key to our own survival. If you want to look into the species further, there is a very active online community of pet tarantula owners. Obviously, there are slight differences with these being captive, but they give a lot of insight into the different species and the biology and behaviour of them. Some also work at rehoming them. Just remember, no matter how scary and intimidating tarantulas look, they're probably more scared of you, so be nice to them. If there's an animal you'd like me to cover in a video, please comment it below, and also, thank you for watching.